22 miles into the Apache Trail at a place called Fish Creek Vista, there's a sign warning that this is your last chance to turn around. Past that point, no shoulder is wide enough to pull onto, no spot exists to reverse a car safely, and for the next 5 miles, the road becomes a single carved shelf of decomposed granite hanging off a canyon wall, several hundred feet of drop on one side and solid rock on the other. Most drivers heading east from Phoenix don't even notice the sign until they've already passed it, and that's the part of this road nobody warns you about before you go. Before we begin, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can catch all of our upcoming videos. Also, comment down below for any videos you would want to see. Apache Trail was never meant to carry tourists, and it was barely meant to carry cars at all. Construction crews broke ground in August of 1903 on what was then called the Tonto Wagon Road, a supply route hacked through the Superstition Mountains to reach the site of the Theodore Roosevelt Dam, a location so remote it sat nearly 60 miles from the nearest railhead in Mesa. Roughly 200 Apache laborers worked the stretch closest to the dam site, while another 200 Pima workers pushed outward from a camp at Government Well, 25 miles away. By September of 1905, the road was finished, and it had cost $551,000 to build. What those crews created was never a highway in any modern sense. It was a supply corridor, engineered for horse teams and freight wagons moving at a walking pace. Nothing more ambitious than that. The single most dangerous stretch of that original road is called Fish Creek Hill, and it hasn't fundamentally changed in over a century. Dropping at close to a 10% grade through a series of tight switchbacks carved directly into the canyon wall, the hill is held together by retaining walls that Apache stonemasons built entirely by hand, using dry stacked rock with no mortar at all. That detail matters more than almost anything else in this story, because the structural integrity of the road you'd drive today still rests on stonework assembled in 1905, held in place by nothing but the weight and fit of the stone itself. Here's the part that should stop you. Nobody has ever replaced that engineering. Crews have patched sections here and there, and after floods and wildfires, made temporary repairs where they had to. But the basic shape of Fish Creek Hill, the width of the shelf, the total absence of any barrier between the road and the drop, still comes from a design meant for a wagon moving 8 miles an hour, not a modern vehicle doing 50. The road was never upgraded to meet the thing that would eventually drive on it, which means the gap between what it was built for and what actually uses it now has never closed. That single gap, quietly widening for 120 years, is where every story in this video begins. The road worked, in the sense that it delivered enough material to finish the dam, but almost immediately it became something its builders never intended, which was a tourist attraction. Running its sunset route between New Orleans and San Francisco, the Southern Pacific Railroad spotted the canyon views along this new supply road and started marketing motorcar side trips to its passengers, coining the name Apache Trail along the way. Within a year of the road opening, people were paying for a scenic drive through country that had been engineered purely to survive freight traffic, not to be admired at leisure by first-time visitors with their eyes on the view instead of the pavement. The first major accident followed almost immediately. On November 23, 1905, barely 3 months after the road opened, a stagecoach wrecked on the stretch between Mormon Flat and Fish Creek Hill, and the pattern that would define this road for the next century and change was set within its first 90 days. A spectacular, marketable landscape sitting directly on top of a genuinely dangerous piece of infrastructure, with people consistently underestimating which one they were actually experiencing. That pattern never really broke, and here's a number that ought to bother you. Even before its most recent closures, the stretch between Tortilla Flat and Apache Lake carried an average of only 232 vehicles a day, a strikingly small figure for a road that shows up again and again in crash reports and helicopter rescue calls. This isn't a busy interstate racking up a statistically predictable number of wrecks. It's a lightly traveled backcountry route where a wildly disproportionate share of the people who drive it end up needing to be pulled off a cliff. The unpaved character of the historic stretch, running from just east of Tortilla Flat to Roosevelt Dam, has been preserved rather than modernized. Guardrails eventually came to parts of the route after it became an official state highway in 1920, but the most exposed sections, Fish Creek Hill chief among them, remain essentially unguarded to this day. What's changed isn't the road, it's what's driving on it, how fast it's moving, and how little most drivers understand about what they've actually signed up for. Everything so far happened in daylight, on a road people at least had a chance to see clearly. What happens on this same stretch after dark is a different problem, and the recent history makes that painfully clear. East of Tortilla Flat, there is a curve locals call Hell's Gate, and over the last 2 years, it has generated more headlines than almost any other point on the trail. 19-year-old Maddie Davis and 21-year-old Andrew Nelson drove out before sunrise in September of 2025 to watch the light come up over the canyon, and their car went off Hell's Gate and fell nearly 400 feet. A brain bleed and a broken neck were what Davis walked away with. 21 staples in his head were what it took to patch up Nelson. Both survived, largely because a group of strangers led by a bystander named Lenny Marshall scrambled down the cliff face through loose rock and cactus to reach them before a helicopter crew could arrive. What Marshall said afterward is the detail that should stick with you. "Multiple cars go off this road every single year," he told a local news crew. "There are no guardrails anywhere along this stretch, and all it takes is one lapse in concentration to end up over the edge." He wasn't describing a freak accident. He was describing a pattern he'd apparently watched repeat itself more than once. The result was the same weeks later, on October 8th, when another vehicle went off the road near milepost 219. Fire crews arriving on scene found one person 40 feet down a steep slope and the vehicle itself, with 2 more people trapped inside, sitting over 350 feet below the edge. Pulling all 3 out alive took a helicopter hoist operation and a technical rope team working the canyon wall for hours. And at that same Hell's Gate curve, on a separate occasion, a car went 377 feet down the cliff face, the wreck itself not even recovered until the following morning. What none of these 3 incidents involved is just as telling as what they did. No storm, no unusual conditions, no driver doing anything an average person would call reckless. Just people out to see a sunrise on a road that loses cars to the canyon multiple times a year, according to the man who helped pull survivors out of one, along a stretch with 0 guardrail protection between the pavement and the drop. All 3 groups survived on nothing but the geometry of how their vehicles happened to fall, not because the road offered them any margin for error. Every crash you just heard about happened with the sun up, with visibility, with at least a chance to see the edge of the world before reaching it. Now take that chance away entirely. Once the sun goes down, everything that makes Apache Trail survivable in daylight disappears, and none of it returns until morning. Lighting doesn't exist anywhere along the unpaved stretch past Tortilla Flat. Cell service is unreliable at best, which means a driver who goes off the road or simply blows a tire on a blind curve has no way to call for help and has to hope somebody happens to drive past. And with this stretch averaging only 232 vehicles a day spread across 24 hours, that wait can stretch into hours rather than minutes. The road surface itself turns against you once darkness falls. Decomposed granite covers the unpaved sections, loose and shifting under tires, while the single-lane width through much of Fish Creek Hill means meeting an oncoming vehicle on a blind curve at night, headlights unable to sweep around the bend until you're already committed to it, leaves almost no room to react. Nowhere exists to pull over. Nowhere exists to turn around. Once you've started down that hill, you're finishing the descent whether you're ready or not. Then there's the damage still left over from 2019, when the Woodbury Fire tore through the surrounding forest and the flooding that followed battered the retaining structures along parts of the route. A full repair, estimated at $33 million, remains unfunded as of the most recent reporting, which means what's currently in place is an interim fix. That fix is adequate for careful daylight driving in good conditions. It's considerably less forgiving for anyone navigating the same stretch, blind, tired, and moving faster than they realize in the dark. None of this is hypothetical. It's the same road that took Maddie Davis and Andrew Nelson off Hell's Gate, the same curve that dropped 3 more people over 350 feet near milepost 219, and every one of those incidents happened in daylight, with at least a fighting chance to see the danger coming. Subtract the sun from that equation, and what's left is a hand-built, mortar-free road from 1905, carrying modern vehicles at modern speeds, with no lights, no barriers, and no way out until you reach the other side. That sign at Fish Creek Vista is still standing exactly where it's always been. It still marks the last place you can safely turn a car around before the road narrows into the shelf that's been swallowing vehicles since a stagecoach wrecked there in 1905. It isn't a suggestion, it's the road telling you the same thing it's been telling people for 120 years. Drive the Apache Trail in daylight and be off Fish Creek Hill before the sun goes down. That's the whole lesson.